This is so fantastic. Piers Morgan is one of those people who likes to present himself and assert that he's a nonpartisan, independent journalist. He's not rooting for Trump or rooting for MAGA or a partisan of any kind. And in an interview with friend of the show, Tim Miller, who's an anti-Trump Republican and has been on the show a couple times now recently and is just so good in these debate scenarios, he just comes in and says, "This is the Piers Morgan show." Not anymore. This is the Tim Miller show, okay? Takes it over and exposes that fake framing of Piers Morgan, the way that he sort of asserts himself. And we'll talk about what I mean by that and all that happens in this. So the one of the Trump campaign officials, Lewandowski, appeared right before this. And you'll hear Tim Miller essentially break down his reaction to that appearance.
We all know him, that his biggest flaw is that he's a perfectionist. I mean, do you read his bleats? He doesn't even spell things correctly. But the most important thing I want to pick on is that little exchange you had about, it's so surprising they've never met. Do you know why Trump and Kamala Harris have never met, Piers? Have you thought about it for a second? Do you know why they really haven't met?
Tell me.
Because he was a toddler and he threw a temper tantrum after he lost a fair election. And for the first time in America since the Civil War, we did not have a peaceful transfer of power. We did not have a ceremonial transfer of power where the former president, like a man, goes and stands on the stage and greets the next incoming president, where he helps the incoming team with the transition, where the vice president's team meets with the. That didn't happen last time because Donald Trump attempted a coup and he had a temper tantrum and he flew home to Mar-a-Lago just to go golfing and to hang out with the Cougars on the pool deck.
To be clear, all of which
That's what happened. That's why they haven't met, because he tried a coup.
Well, to be clear, at the time I heavily criticised him for all the things you've just said. But that doesn't explain why...
Okay, sure, but Corey Lewandowski comes on your show and he's like, Donald Trump and Kamala haven't met.
Well, hang on.
Oh, my goodness.
No,
wow, that's so interesting. They haven't met. And then Corey's over there saying, it's because Kamala was ineffective as a senator. It's because Donald Trump was supposed to be a deal maker, didn't meet with any of the Democratic senators. He said he was going to be the art of the deal man, but he didn't try to actually do any deals. All he did was insult people on Twitter, and then after he lost to Kamala Harris, fair and square.
Let's stop there. It continues on. This is what you gotta do sometimes. I know it comes off just woo, but you gotta steamroll people sometimes. I'm sorry, in these debate scenarios. Otherwise, you never have the time and the space to fully let your point be articulated. And that's what Tim Miller has learned to do really well in numerous different debates recently. But I think about this a lot, and you've heard it said on the show a lot, but I guess I consider how often I should scream about it, because if it really is the end-all be-all point, then shouldn't it be brought up constantly? But I also want you to be entertained, so I don't want to just be super repetitive. But the way that Tim Miller connected, in a way that I don't know if my brain would immediately do, point from Lewandowski that Piers Morgan seemed to agree with about Kamala Harris not meeting with Trump, and that's bizarre. Oh, she must be so ineffective, was the point being made. There wasn't enough bipartisanship. Just connect everything back to what is at the core of all of these conversations right now. And for Piers Morgan, it's the perfect person to bring this up with, because he does this weird thing where he says, as he says there, I criticize Trump for doing, as Tim Miller described it, a coup, or trying a coup, trying to prevent the lawful victor from coming to office after Trump lost the election, trying to illegally hold on to power through things like the fake elector scheme. And Piers Morgan says, yeah, I criticize that. Well, then that's it. Done. If you acknowledge those facts, which you should, that's sort of the whole political conversation until Trump's not a part of that conversation anymore and he's no longer politically relevant. This time, I'm hoping, is where we're able to do that electorally with the November election. But until then, we were just talking about the childcare jumbled answer. We're going to talk about those other things because, again, I also want you to be informed on other things. But in terms of the political dialogue and debate, that's it. Everything's built on us having that functioning democracy so we can decide with our democracy how we do things related to childcare, how we handle the border, how we handle energy policy. Without the democratic process, boom, everything's irrelevant. So Piers Morgan, if you understand those facts, stop running cover as he does for the dishonesty of MAGA. We'll talk more about that after watching more. The majority of people who watch the show on a regular basis aren't actually subscribed to the channel. If you can make sure you are by clicking that subscribe button, easy, free, simple, but makes all the difference. I greatly appreciate it to help us get the word out. Back to the video.
And Joe Biden, he didn't have the dignity
but why
to have a transfer of power for the first time in American history.
I've just said I agree.
Shameful.
I've just said
it's embarrassing. He's an embarrassment.
I've just said I agree with you. So let's park that to one side.
Well, but you didn't say it to Corey. You didn't challenge Corey. It was a very chummy interview. I know you want to get Trump on the show, but it was very chummy.
Okay.
And you didn't challenge Corey that much.
Ask can be chummy too. I don't think I've been unchummy to you. I don't even know you. I've known Corey.
No, we can be chummy.
I've known Corey a long time.
Somebody that's a close advisor to Donald Trump on the podcast, you think that you could challenge him a little bit. That's all.
I was just going to ask you this question. The point that he made, Corey Lewandowski, was it was surprising to him they'd never met, given that Trump was president for 4 years before the transfer of power, January 6th issues that you'll talk about. Why was Kamala Harris, who's one of the 100 senators in the United States at the time, why was she incapable of being able to get into a room with Donald Trump, the president?
How was she not invited? Why did the president not invite her to the White House?
Why didn't she make herself
Donald
invited?
Trump ran.
Isn't that a job of senators?
Come on. Donald Trump ran on this BS nonsense and come on this show. I'm the art of the deal man. I'm a deal maker, which was a book he didn't even write that got ghostwritten. It was this fake persona. It was this Hollywood persona that he conned the American people into believing that he was some deal maker. Then he gets in the White House and he doesn't even try to work with the Democrats on a deal. All he does is,
this is too good, so let's just keep playing it. But let me jump in here now to make the point I was going to previously make. Be honest about your views. You can MAGA. It's disappointing when you are, but you can. You have that right. My only request is that you're just transparent about it. It's why I prioritize being transparent with you all about where I stand. I'm going to go vote in November for Kamala Harris. I am a resident in Texas. That's where I vote. And I'm going to vote for Colin Allred for Senate, etc. I want you to know that because I think my factual analysis of the world, where I try to make sure irrational biases aren't getting in the way of that analysis, leads me to thinking the best outcome for Americans is by those leaders being elected versus the alternative. So it doesn't take away from one's ability to independently think and analyze facts, to be honest about where they land given those facts, where their opinion lands. And there are people like Piers Morgan who work so hard to obscure and abstract that and make it seem like, no, I'm above all of it. I'm above partisanship. I'm above party politics. I'm above preferences of different people, and I'm just sort of independently thinking. And then that would be cool if he operated that way, but he goes on to do his show in a way that is so pro-MAGA, and he would say, what do you mean? I've never said I'm voting for Trump. Yeah, it's not the explicit stuff. The point Tim Miller's making is you bring a close advisor to Trump on with all that Trump stands for is doing the things he's out there saying at a press conference today, saying the reason he didn't rape a woman is because she wasn't the chosen one. His language, not mine. She wasn't good looking enough is what he was saying for her. Not because raping's bad. And the questions being asked are things like what Piers Morgan asks. And he can do a tough interview. He can. He's done a tough interview with Trump before. But is there a little audience capture thing going on where clearly he's developing a more right-wing audience? And then friend of the show, Josiah from Pondering Politics, would say he definitely grades Republicans on a curve, and he holds Democrats and Republicans to a very different standard. Would he even give Kamala Harris the time of day if she had tried to undemocratically declare herself president and prevent a lawful election from happening? Probably not. But we're able to say, no, I criticize him about that, but also it's a witch hunt against Trump. And he pushes the sort of, it's all unfair against, or not all, but a lot of the stuff is unfair against Trump legally. And then the types of discussions that go on. So be more mindful of that. That would be my request to Piers Morgan. I've been on a show. I'd love to go on again, talk about this. But But also, if you're out there and you're, doing a show, there's a place for straight news, objective, no opinions being thrown into it, journalism. If you're adding opinions to it, just be transparent about where you stand, and then let your audience, now they know that, and work really hard to just analyze the facts while also being clear about where those facts have led you in terms of political conclusions. Here's more.
Insult them. He does nicknames. He trashes them. He didn't cut any deals. Donald Trump, Joe Biden ended up being the deal maker that got the bipartisan deal on gay marriage, on infrastructure.
Right,
so that's why Kamala didn't go to the White House. He didn't ever invite her. How about that?
Well, yeah,
Did you try that?
If I was a senator, I'd have made sure I got invited. But let me ask you, I'm curious about your own journey. You were Jeb Bush's guy.
And then goes on to ask about the background. We've asked Tim Miller about his journey to becoming a pro-Harris campaign, at least, thinking she's far better than Trump. Given that one simple fact, you can't take an oath to a constitution that you've called for the termination of. Let me know what you thought of that in the comments, and if you want to support this show, you can do it by clicking the join button below. If you appreciate the way that we do the show, in the ways that I just mentioned, make an effort to be transparent on things, you can do it in the way that I just explained, and you can donate to Kamala Harris' campaign by clicking the link in the description of this video, not because she's perfect, but because she's far better.